Murrumbidgee River, a major tributary of the Murray River within the Murray-Darling Basin and the second longest river in Australia. It flows through the Australian state of New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory. It descends 1,500 metres, 4,900 feet, as it flows 1,485 kilometres, 923 miles, in a west-northwesterly direction from the foot of Peppercorn Hill in the fiery range of the Snowy Mountains towards its confluence with the Murray River near Boundary Bend. The word Murrumbidgee means big water in the Wiradjuri language, one of the local Aboriginal languages. The river itself flows through several traditional Indigenous Australian lands, home to various Aboriginal tribes. In the Australian Capital Territory, the river is bordered by a narrow strip of land on each side, which are both managed as the Murrumbidgee River Corridor, MRC. This land includes nature reserves, 8 recreation reserves, a European Heritage Conservation Zone and rural leases. Flow. The main stream of the river system flows for 900 kilometres, 560 miles. The river's headwaters arise from the wet heath and bog at the foot of Peppercorn Hill, situated along Long Plain, which is within the fiery range of the Snowy Mountains, and about 50 kilometres, 31 miles, north of Kiandra. From its headwaters it flows to its confluence with the Murray River. The river flows for 66 kilometres, 41 miles, through the Australian Capital Territory near Canberra, picking up the important tributaries of the Gudgeonby, Queanbeyan, Molonglo and Cotter rivers. The Murrumbidgee drains much of southern New South Wales and all of the Australian Capital Territory, and is an important source of irrigation water for the riverina farming area. The reaches of the Murrumbidgee in the Australian Capital Territory Act are affected by the complete elimination of large spring snow melt flows and a reduction of average annual flows of almost 50%, due to Tantingara Dam. Tantingara Dam was completed in 1960 on the headwaters of Murrumbidgee River and diverts approximately 99% of the river's flow at that point into Lake Yucumbene. This has extremely serious effects on native fish populations and other native aquatic life and has led to serious siltation, stream contraction, fish habitat loss and other problems. The Murrumbidgee, where it enters the Act, is effectively half the river it used to be. A study suggests a section of the upper river's channels are relatively new in geological terms, dating from the early Miocene. The Miocene era being from 23 to 5 million years ago. It is suggested that the upper Murrumbidgee is an anabranch of the Tumut River that once continued north along Mutta Mutta Creek, when geological uplift near Adaminaby diverted its flow. From Gundagai onwards the rivers flow within its ancestral channel. In June 2008 the Murray-Darling Basin Commission released a report on the condition of the Murray-Darling Basin, with the Goulburn and Murrumbidgee rivers rated in a very poor condition in the Murray-Darling Basin, with fish stocks in both rivers were also rated as extremely poor, with only 13 of the original 22 native fish species still found in the Murrumbidgee River. History. The Murrumbidgee River runs through the traditional lands of the Ngarigo, Ngunnawal, Wiradjuri, Ngari Ngari and Muthi Muthi Aboriginal tribes. Exploration. The Murrumbidgee River was known to Europeans before it was actually discovered by them. In 1820 the explorer Charles Throsby informed the Governor of New South Wales that he anticipated finding a considerable river of salt water, except at very wet seasons, called by the natives Murrumbidgee. In the Expedition Journal, Throsby wrote as a marginal note, "This river stream is called by the natives Murrumbidgee." Quote, the river he had stumbled upon was in fact the Molonglo River. Throsby reached the actual river in April 1821. In 1823, Brigade Major John Ovens and Captain Mark Curry reached the upper Murrumbidgee when exploring south of Lake George. In 1829, Charles Sturt and his party rowed down the lower half of the Murrumbidgee River in a stoutly built, large rowboat, from Narrandere to the Murray River, and then down the Murray River to the sea. They then rowed back upstream, against the current, to their starting point. Sturt's description of their passage through the junction of the Murrumbidgee and Murray Rivers is dramatic. His description of wild, strong currents in the Murrumbidgee, in the middle of summer, the 14th of January 1830, when flows are declining and close to the seasonal summer-autumn minimum, are in contrast to the sluggish, chronically irrigation-reduced flow seen at the junction today in midsummer. The men looked anxiously out ahead, for the singular change in the river had impressed on them an idea that we were approaching its termination. We were carried at a fearful rate down its gloomy and contracted banks. At 3 p.m., Hopkinson called out that we were approaching a junction, and in less than a minute afterwards, we were hurried into a broad and noble river. Such was the force with which we had been shot out of the Murrumbidgee, that we were carried nearly to the bank opposite its embouchure. Whilst we continued to gaze in silent astonishment on the capacious channel of the Murray River we had entered, the Murrumbidgee Basin was open to settlement in the 1830s and soon became an important farming area. Ernest Favink, when writing on Australian exploration, commented on the relatively tardy European discovery of the river and that the river retained a name used by Indigenous Australians. Here we may remark on the tenacity with which the Murrumbidgee River long eluded the eye of the white man. It is scarcely probable that Meehan and Hume, who on this occasion were within comparatively easy reach of the headwaters, could have seen a new inland river at that time without mentioning the fact. But there is no record traceable anywhere as to the date of its discovery, or the name of its finder. When in 1823 Captain Curry and Major Ovens were led along its bank onto the beautiful Manaroo country by Joseph Wild, the stream was then familiar to the early settlers and called the Murrumbidgee. Even in 1821, when Hume found the Yass Plains, almost on its bank, he makes no special mention of the river. From all this we may deduce the extremely probable fact that the position of the river was shown to some stock rider by a native, who also confided the Aboriginal name, and so it gradually worked the knowledge of its identity into general belief. This theory is the more feasible as the river has retained its native name. If a white man of any known position had made the discovery, it would at once have received the name of some person holding official sway. Floods. The river has risen above 7 meters, 23 feet, at Gundagai 9 times between 1852 and 2010, an average of just under once every 11 years. Since 1925, flooding has been minor with the exception of floods in 1974 and in December 2010, when the river rose to 10.2 meters, 33 feet, at Gundagai. In the 1852 disaster, the river rose to just over 12.2 meters, 40 feet. The following year the river again rose to just over 12.5 meters, 41 feet. The construction of Burrinjuck Dam from 1907 has significantly reduced flooding, but despite the dam, there were major floods in 1925, 1950, 1974 and 2012. The most notable flood was in 1852 when the town of Gundagai was swept away and 89 people, a third of the town's population, were killed. The town was rebuilt on high ground. In 1925, 4 people died and the flooding lasted for 8 days. The reduction in floods has consequences for wildlife, particularly birds and trees. There has been a decline in bird populations and black box floodplain eucalypt forest trees are starting to lose their crowns. Major flooding occurred during March 2012 along the Murrumbidgee River including Wagga Wagga, where the river peaked at 10.56 meters, 34.6 feet. On 6 March 2012, this peak was 0.18 meters, 0.59 feet, below the 1974 flood level of 10.74 meters, 35.2 feet. Wetlands. Major wetlands along the Murrumbidgee or associated with the Murrumbidgee catchment include Low-Bidgee floodplain, 2,000 square kilometers, 772 square miles, between Maud and Balranald. Mid-Murrumbidgee wetlands along the river from Narrandera to Karathul, 5 Bow and Tuckable swamps, Tomneys Plain, Mikalong Swamp, Lake George, Yalk Swamp, Black Swamp and Cooper's Swamp, Big Badger Swamp. Tributaries. The Murrumbidgee River has about 90 named tributaries in total, 24 rivers, and numerous creeks and gullies. The ordering of the basin, from source to mouth, of the major tributaries is: population centres, Tharwa, Canberra, particularly Tuggeranong, Juggiong, Gundagai, Wantabadgery, Wagga Wagga, Narrandera, Yanco, Leeton, Darlington Point, Hay, Balranald. River crossings. The list below notes past and present bridges that cross over the Murrumbidgee River. There were numerous other crossings before the bridges were constructed and many of these still exist today. Downstream from Wagga Wagga, Wagga Wagga to Burrunduck. Upstream from Burrunduck. Images. Distances along the river. Gundagai to Wagga Wagga 138 kilometers, 86 miles. Wagga Wagga to Yarragundi 37 kilometers, 23 miles. Yarragundi to Yorkabito 77 kilometers, 48 miles. Yorkabito to Grong Grong 58 kilometers, 36 miles. Grong Grong to Narrandera 21 kilometers, 13 miles. Narrandera to Yanco Abedadera 18 kilometers, 11 miles. Yanco to Yanco Station 29 kilometers, 18 miles. Yanco to Gageldri 21 kilometers, 13 miles. Gageldri to Tubbo 24 kilometers, 15 miles. Tubbo to Caraburi 55 kilometers, 34 miles. Caraburi to Karathul 66 kilometers, 41 miles. Karathul to Burrabogie 56 kilometers, 35 miles. Burrabogie to Alilawa 42 kilometers, 26 miles. Alilawa to Hay 22 kilometers, 14 miles. Hay to Tugambi 63 kilometers, 39 miles. Tugambi to Maud 40 kilometers, 25 miles. Maud to Lachlan Junction 71 kilometers, 44 miles. Lachlan Junction to Balranald 137 kilometers, 85 miles. Balranald to Canley 42 kilometers, 26 miles. Canley to Wymby, Murray Junction 61 kilometers, 38 miles. Total distance from Gundagai to Murrumbidgee Junction 1078 kilometers, 670 miles. See also: List of rivers of New South Wales, List of rivers of the Australian Capital Territory, List of Murrumbidgee River distances, List of Darling River distances, List of Murray River crossings, List of Murray River distances. Murray-Darling Basin includes useful chart of tributaries. Nomination of Lower Murrumbidgee catchment for UNESCO's Help Pilot Demonstration status by CSIRO. Murrumbidgee River flows recorded by NSW Water. River Pilot Maps 1880 to 1918, Echuca Historical Society. Snowy Flow Response Monitoring and Modeling. Murrumbidgee Catchment Management Authority website. Upper Murrumbidgee Demonstration Reach Map. PDF. 1.22 megabytes. Murrumbidgee and Lake George Catchments. Map. Office of Environment and Heritage. Government of New South Wales. Murray River Catchment. NSW. Quote. Map. Office of Environment and Heritage. Government of New South Wales.